My name is Yvette Dabby, and née Atrakci, and I was born in Baghdad, Iraq.
Okay. Can you tell me about your family background a little bit, about your parents?
My father was a merchant. His family originated from Basra, Iraq, and then they there were 6 brothers that were partners in work, and then 2 of the brothers moved to Iraq with their families, and my mom was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and she was a seamstress before she got married. She had lost her dad at a very young age when her dad was 25 years old in an accident.
Do you remember any of your grandparents?
I just remember my grandmother because most of the family had left made aliyah to Israel in 1951 in the big aliyah. So when I was growing up, we didn't have most of the community had left Iraq. The community was like 130,000, and I think by that time when I was born and growing up, we were like 10,000 only.
So why did your family stay?
I guess it was not easy. The family that went to Israel, it was very harsh conditions. They were in tents. They were in what we call ma'barot, and it was hard, for them. Like when we were growing up, we were always said, "Why did you stay? Why did you stay?" Especially when we went through the hard times. But then when you have your own family and you're raising your kids and you know what it takes, it's not an easy decision if you're gonna go to an unknown and you're living more or less comfortably, to get up and leave.
Okay, so can you tell me about your house and the neighborhood you grew up in? Who lived in your house?
Actually, when I was growing up, my aunt and uncle had moved in with us. So we had one big house with 2 families living there. I guess my aunt's house was burglarized, so the 2 brothers. So she was afraid to live by herself, so they moved in. So it was a fun thing because there were 8 kids between both families, and everybody tended to come to our house. My house was in the Batawin area, which is by the River Tigris, and I have some fond memories until things got really bad after the 6-Day War.
So what was the neighborhood like where you grew up?
It was there were a lot of Jews living there. Actually, it was a small community, so everybody knew everybody else. We all went to basically the same schools. I went to Menachem Daniel Elementary, and then went on to Frank Aini High School, and everybody sort of knew everybody else. It was really small, comparably when I was growing up.
So how are the holidays and Shabbat observed in your family?
Oh, the holidays were beautiful, like especially like Pesach, Purim. Purim was like huge. They were baking for days and days, and Mishlawach Manot there meant big trays of baked baklava and cookies, and everything was made at home, and it was big to do. And Pesach also, all the holidays. We observed all the holidays.
Tell me about your friends. Were they Jewish or non-Jewish?
In high school, we're all Jewish because we went to a Jewish school, so everybody was Jewish. But when I went to university, I had some friends who were not Jewish.
Can you tell me about your siblings? Do you have any memories with them that stick out?
Yeah, I have two. My sisters are a little older, so especially my eldest sister was a lot more like a mom to me. But as far as like going out and going to parties, because I had my cousin about the same age and would go together and hang out together, and the parties were like more at everybody else's, homes, not as much going out like to bars or stuff like that. So it was more homebound, and it was nice.
What about school? Do you have any memories from school about being Jewish in your school?
Well, yeah, no, we were all Jewish. It was pretty strict. It was pretty intense. We studied 4 languages since we were little: French, English, Arabic, and a little bit of Hebrew. We took prayer book Hebrew. And then when we went to high school, we took everything in French, everything, meaning chemistry, math, physics, in 3 languages. And then the truth is, high school, the last year of high school, I would say, or last 2 years of high school, were even more difficult than when we went to university in engineering. It was very intense, but they succeeded in really getting very, very good kids who graduated and went on to universities all over, like to MIT, to UCLA, to the Sorbonne in France, because the level was very high. They kept the level very high.
Did you belong to any social clubs or?
We had like a sports club that we hang out more in the summer. Winter time there weren't that much time to, because we had like the studies were like, we'd be in school from 8 to 4 every day, except Saturday. Even Sunday we went to school. So there wasn't much time. But in the summertime there was a sport club, and it also belonged to the Jews. Also there was a YMCA that was behind my house, and we used to go there to swim or tennis, so it was nice.
What languages did you speak at home and outside?
At home we spoke Arabic, Judeo-Arabic, mostly, but we took I took 12 years of French, at least, and English. We're pretty fluent. Like when we went to the university, they opened a class in literature for the kids who came from the Jewish high school, because our level was much higher than the other kids coming in.
Did you know that you were going to leave? Did you know that time was running out in Iraq for the Jews?
Oh, absolutely. It was horrible the last few years. It was miserable. And then they even took licenses away from people. People couldn't do business anymore. I was working in a structural engineering office, and my boss came and told me, "You're an asset to the company, but I have to let you go because they got directives from the government that can't employ Jews."
Okay, so do you want to tell me about the 1967 war and your memories of that period right after and what happened?
Yeah, it's well, I was
remember to say during the 1967.
Yeah. During the 1967 war, I was we had just finished the junior year in the university, and they started to. Right after that, they started to take people into prison. They took a lot of the doctors, lawyers. A lot of people were in prison, and just for no reason. And then into the 68, and then there was a revolution after revolution, and then 68 they started talking about having aspiring. They took my cousin from Basra. He was a big, very well-known businessman there, and they were torturing him. And he even served in the Iraqi army. He wouldn't say he was a spy. They killed him in front of everyone, so the others would say that they were spies. And then that eventually culminated into they hung people in the public square January 27. Sorry, I thought I shut it off. I thought I shut it off. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I should shut it off completely.
Okay, it happens.
Just I even see what it is, but I'm just gonna shut it up. Okay, now it's shut for sure. Sorry.
Okay, so to get to talk, you were talking about the public hangings.
The public hanging. So yeah. So I was saying that my cousin was put in prison. He was tortured, and then him and one more person. They said they ran away, but we knew that there was no way anybody would run away. And then they had the hangings in January of 69, in the main public square of Baghdad. And it was very, very difficult. My cousin was also, his wife is also my cousin. Two cousins married, and she had 7 kids. The youngest is a 3-year-old girl at the time. Devastating for the whole family. And a lot of our, almost everybody was touched by that, because there were a lot of families involved, and they started with the Jews, and then they went on to implicate and say public figures, like political figures. And like not long after that, they killed like 42 of the top politicians of Iraq. But they started with the Jews because it would be more plausible that the Jews would be doing this.
So what did your parents do to protect, like what was their reaction in your house?
Well, eventually my cousin moved in with us for a while from Basra. She moved back, and then at that point, it was very, very difficult because people didn't have work. They couldn't get passports, couldn't get out. So eventually, people started to leave, go through the north of Iraq illegally, with the help of the Kurds helped us. First, they used to go through the south, but then that was close to the point where there was the war with Iran. So they couldn't do that. That was an easier route. So they started to go from the north of Iraq, which is a little bit harder. The older people at a certain point, because there was a big uproar from the world, they allowed them to get passports for older people. Like my parents eventually left with a passport, but the kids, we all had to go one by one illegally.
So can you tell me, aside from your cousin, did you lose friends?
Acquaintances, yes, people that we knew, business people that were either tortured and killed. My husband's uncle also was tortured. My husband was imprisoned for 3 times just because he was, in the university. He was wrote for the paper. He was known. So it was very, 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 very hard. Very, very hard conditions.
So who took care of all of the children of your cousin?
Just the family, the mom, and we helped her as much as we could. Eventually, she left with us with 4 of the younger children. The older kids left earlier, and then the younger ones fled with us through the north of Iraq.
So can you tell me your story in detail of leaving?
Yeah, we took a train. So it was me, my husband, my cousin, and 4 of 3 boys and the youngest daughter. and we took a train to go up to the north of Iraq, and then from there we were approached by smugglers. It was sort of set up, and we crossed the border. At a certain point, the smugglers took us across the border. We were in a big like a truck. We were 25 people in that truck. Like I was sitting in my husband's lap, and I had the little girl in my lap. So that's just to give you an idea. And that's how we crossed the border. At the other side, actually, we were met, and there was an agent from Israel that was there even at the border, because Israel was helping the Kurds at that point with medical resources, because at that point also there was a war between the Kurds and the Iraqi government. So they really helped us.
Do you know if anyone who didn't get out of Iraq? Do you know people who just
stayed? Yeah, there were people that just stayed. Actually, lately when the U.S. went into Iraq, Hayes went in and took, I believe, like 10 Jews that were still there. I mean, it was hard. They lived their life there. They didn't feel like leaving. That's their roots, their ancestors were all from there. So, but she took some, and they went through Jordan, and they left. There's still very, very few, I would say very few, maybe 4, 5, 6, I don't know. Very few left there.
Were there any Arab families who helped your family?
Actually, yes, there were friends. The Muslim were better. I think the Christians were maybe scared, but there were some, like a good friend of my sister from university. She helped. She would come, but the Christians more like didn't want to come anywhere near us.
And did your dad have anyone who he worked with, any Muslims that he worked with who helped you guys?
Well, in the past, they worked really very closely together. The Muslims and the Christians and the Jews, they all worked very closely together. At that point, when the time that I'm talking about, people were scared, were very, very scared. And it was after years of bad propaganda and from, the government, and, they had like programs on television that's called Poison. They were just poisoning people, and people were scared. And it's understandable. I mean, you can imagine when people are being hung. I mean, you can understand that they will be scared. But there were still some friends, and I know for a fact, like years back, at the time of the Farhud, which is in 1941, I believe. I mentioned that we have my father. They had date orchards, and the people who were, they would say, if you step foot here and hurt these people, will kill you. You will have to go over our dead body. So they were very protective. But we're talking then 30, 40 years later, a lot of Nazi propaganda, a lot of propaganda from the Ba'ath Party, from this, that, and it's not the same. It's not like when they were growing up and working together and they were like brothers and sisters.
Was there a political party that your family supported in any way?
No, the Jews were not involved in any politics. Very, very, very few would be involved into politics.
So you knew your husband in Iraq?
Yeah, we went to the same university because he's also an engineer. And the families knew each other.
But you weren't married then?
No, we got married in Iraq in 1970. But we went to the same university and the same high school. Everybody says it was a very, very small community.
Mm. So how long did you stay in Iran for, and what happened to you in Iran?
In Iran, we stayed just for 2 weeks, and then we got a laissez-passer and we went to Holland because my sister and brother-in-law and my brother were already in Holland. And Holland was amazing. They were very helpful to any refugees from any country. And so we went to Holland. We studied the Dutch language for like 4 months. And then we decided my brother-in-law got papers for us to come to the United States.
And you wanted to come to the United States, or did you want to go to Israel? What was your...
Actually, I want to go to Israel. My husband wanted to go to Israel, but my brother, no, you have to come here first. You have to come here first. So he sort of talked us into it. But most of our friends and family were in Israel.
And where were your parents in this whole time?
My parents and my husband's parents, they left with passport. So they went to Israel. And then my in-laws came to live with us in 1981, 1982, 81, 82, something like that. And my mom, after my father passed away, she came also to the United States.
Okay. How was your absorption in the United States?
To be honest, at the beginning it was shocking because you come, number one, you land and you think you're gonna be in New York with all high-rise buildings, and we came to California, and LA, and it was like 2-story buildings. Then from point of view of work as a woman, it was really surprising. You'd think women liberation and they are so far ahead, and as a structural engineer they didn't know what to do with me. It was like, for them, very strange to have a lady engineer. There weren't that many. Now, thank God, there is much more. And that was really interesting, to put it mildly.
So do you have any unique stories from your last couple of years in Iraq? Any unique experiences that stand out?
Well, the last few years were pretty bad. Were very, very bad, actually. Because that was, right from after things started to really deteriorate from 67 on. So it was really tough. But before that, it was nice. I mean, we didn't know any better. We thought, okay, the community was a community when we were young, growing up. But then you will hear stories that was a much bigger, flourishing community. And then it was hard. It was afterwards that we really understood the wealth of knowledge and business from all points of view. For example, I didn't even know that in the 30s, 40% of the Baghdad population was Jewish, and they had quite an impact on everything. And we didn't know that really. And even when we came here, and our kids went to a Jewish school, and we didn't know how important the community was in Iraq.
Do you know the meaning of your family name, where it comes
Atrakci, I think it's people who work with because they were with material. Atrakci, I think, are people who work with doing the abba, the dress for men, the traditional what they wear, like I don't know what you call it. Take a moment.
You can say in Arabic.
In Arabic, it's abba, the traditional. Abba, I guess. It's what they wear, the outer clothes, like the traditional, when you see them, they have the robes, the outer robes, yeah. And with the fine materials. So I think that's probably because they worked in import, that's where it came from.
It kind of sounds like a Persian name.
No, actually it's Arabic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were your family Zionists?
Of course we supported Israel, but you are afraid even to think about it. I mean, when we were growing, you have to imagine when I was growing up, it it was a no-no. You can't even think or say anything about Israel. It's not, we don't have the freedom like we have here.
Were you scared for your life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You can say I was scared for my life.
Yeah, we were very scared for our lives, yes.
Do you remember Saddam Hussein then?
Yes, I remember Saddam Hussein.
What do you remember the reputation?
Well, he was, okay, the earlier memory is when he attacked Qasim, Abdul Karim Qasim in 1961, I think. He had an attempt on Qasim's life, and Qasim forgave him. And then he was behind the scene in the late 60s, and then he surfaced. But he had very bad reputation. What happened is the Ba'ath Party came in 63, and they stayed in power for like 8 months. Then they came back in 68, and when they came back in 68, they came back with a vengeance, and they were like slaughtering and killing thousands and thousands of people. And so it wasn't good.
Was there like a final straw, final event that you left, or was it something you planned?
Well, no, we were planning to leave as soon as we could, because like I said, it couldn't work. They were killing people. They were putting people in prison. There was no hope for anything, to do anything. I mean, we were afraid for our lives.
So in the United States, or in Holland, did you experience any kind of discrimination from Jews or non-Jews for being Mizrahi and Iraqi and?
Not in Holland, and not here. No.
What language do you speak at home now?
Still Arabic. Do
you speak Hebrew at all?
Not Hebrew, no.
So, where do you consider your home to be?
I would have to say here, because we were 20 years in Iraq, 22. I was 22 when we left, and 40 years here. So I would consider this home.
Would you like to go back to Iraq to visit?
I still have second thoughts about that. It's just like the memories are still there. It's the bad memories, and like to go back there, you don't have a community anymore. It's gone. Maybe I think my children would like to go visit, but I would tell them no, not to go, because I consider it not safe.
What did your family leave behind in Iraq?
They left, like my father, like I said, they had like date orchards. They left their business. They came out with almost nothing.
If you had to estimate the total value in dollars of everything that was left behind.
From the Iraqi community?
No,
from my family?
Just a guess.
I don't know. It's very hard, because like the land in Basra, and that has, I think, a lot oil. So how do you estimate that? Yeah. I don't know about the business, but the business is, I guess it would be a fraction of that. Left a lot.
So when you see Iraq on the news now, how do you feel after being here for so long?
It's mixed feelings. When the war was 10 years ago, and you see Basra burning, and I said, this is just to make up for all what my cousin went through, like all what she went through. But then you also feel sorry, and you feel pity, and we feel lucky that we're out of there. That's what I feel. I feel lucky that we're out of there. But I had one experience, I'll tell you. About 20 years ago, I was reading an article in the LA Times, and they were talking about a peddler. He was selling books like in a flea market, and it was a poem, and he was saying that he was selling his books, but and I relate to that because the books were so important to him, but he had to sell them because he had to bring money to eat. And that he was crying, and I started to cry because I related to that, because it's a shame. It's a very educated people, and it's a rich country, and it's a shame what they're going through. Still, you feel sorry for them, in spite of whatever we went through.
Your cousin who had all the children, and your cousin who was killed, his wife, where did they all end up living?
They're in Israel, and it's really a horrible story because she lost also her son. He was a diplomat. I don't know if you heard. There was a diplomat that was targeted when the relationship started between Israel and Egypt, and his car was ambushed and they killed him. He was with his wife and a 1-year-old daughter. They killed him. She was shot in the face, and so my poor cousin, she lost a husband, she lost a son. It's just crazy.
That's crazy. But aside from that, they have a okay life.
Thank God. Yeah, they have a okay life. Her sons live there. One son lives in the United States, but the others live there. They're happy. But for her, I mean, that's her life. That was her life. Her life was gone when they killed her husband.
Have you kept in touch with any of the people from Iraq your friends, your family?
Oh, yes, we are in touch.
And have they all settled into comfortable lives, or is there still a lot of
No, they're settled. That's what it is. I mean, you hear of the refugees, Palestinian refugees, and they're still in the camps, and we were refugees also. We all picked up our pieces and just kept going. And no, they settled. They went on. Life goes on.
Yeah. So how have you preserved your Mizrahi Iraqi identity?
Well, we still keep it with synagogue, with food that we eat, with how we celebrate the holidays. We try as much as possible for the kids to be exposed to that, and they love their traditions, which is great.
Okay. Do your kids speak Arabic?
They understand. I'm trying to speak Arabic to the grandchildren. I'm trying.
So do you have a message for anyone who might see this video?
My message is that life has its hardships, and you just have to look forward and not look back. And that's the only way to do it.
Is there anything else you want to contribute to this that was left out? Any stories? Stories are really it's a nice touch to...
No.
No?
No.
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay.